Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast for one of the best stages I've ever watched, the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift Stage 8 from Le Grand Bornand to Alpe d'Huez. We'll also quickly recap a pretty sedentary sprint stage in La Vuelta at the end, but the big stage was upon us with GC all to play for. Yesterday, to remind you, the riders finished with Vollering taking a few bonus seconds and a small gap on Niewiadoma, but Niewiadoma went into the Queen stage 1 minute and 15 seconds ahead of Demi Vollering and 1 minute and 13 seconds ahead of Paulina Royakkers. So Royakkers was actually ahead of Demi Vollering. They're the main three riders. I want you to remember their GC gaps. And we had the big stage from Le Grand Bornand to Alpe d'Huez. 150 kilometers long, 3,750 meters of climbing. It's the hardest stage we've ever covered. It's the hardest stage we've seen in women's cycling almost that I can recall, with two climbs to start, a Cat 2, a valley of about 50 Ks, Col du Glandon, 20 Ks, 7.2%, a descent which has some hills in it, another valley of 15 Ks, and then Alpe d'Huez 14 Ks, 8%. Also, Benji, do you want to remind us of Shakira and the QOM, what needed to happen with that, or where she was placed?
Well, basically, yesterday we went through the potential strategies, because in GC yesterday, when it comes to the K1 points, the QOM points, we had a classification where Shakira was leading, and Shakira was leading with quite a bit, but there's so many points available on a stage like this that it could still become very close, and she was still in danger. So yesterday she had 41 points to start off with, the likes of Vollering 7 points, the likes of Niewiadoma on 11 points, and Petersen, the closest competitor, on 25 points. You went through the parcours today. In my opinion, the strategy for her was you need to go in the break immediately, get that first, second cat climb to get an extra 5 points advantage on everybody, and then get as close as possible on Glandon, because I think if Shakira went first over the first climb, then Petersen needed to be first on Glandon and fourth at the finish, while the other two, or at least Vollering and Niewiadoma, would have to get, I think, first on both climbs. It was all gonna be relatively close in the end when it comes to the fight there. But honestly, I was starting to get a little bit confident as the race started, because you spoke about Glandon being a massive climb, like 19 point whatever kilometers at 7 to 8%. That's a very difficult climb. That's a 1 hour effort roughly. So that's one where, if you're in the breakaway, you're going to need quite a bit of time at the foot to get over the top in case someone in the peloton will start pacing. And we kind of expected someone to pace, not just the likes of SD Works to launch a Vollering, but also FDJ Suez has been very active on every single climb in this race to make it harder for Evita Muzic and their team. But we had a breakaway, Patrick. We had a breakaway with a solid 22 riders up the road, and it included 4 riders from SD Works: Misha Bredewold, Christine Majerus, Blanca Vash, and Lorena Wiebes. When I saw this, in my mind, there was only one thing possible. They're trying to get these 4 riders in a breakaway and hoping that the gap at the foot of Glandon can be large enough to get them over the top, right? Because otherwise there's not too much value in this, you know?
Oh, Lorena Wiebes can move into second in the points classification.
Wow. Sorry. I don't care about that.
She went for the sprint. She took it.
Yeah, I know, but I personally don't care about that.
It's not a bad tactic. It's not a bad tactic, because all of these riders are going to get dropped on the Glandon and you'll never see them again. They'll be gone. So the only way, if you're planning to do something on the Glandon, if you're Vollering, the only way to have help in the valley afterwards is to put them in the breakaway and hope they get 10 minutes, or even probably more, and then that you can have Bredewold help you in the valley ahead, which actually would have been really useful, as we saw in this race. So it's but then again, it's like then you can't set a pace from the bottom. You have to wait. In the end, it doesn't matter, because some other team will set a pace. You would think an FDJ, a Jayco, Gigante, whoever. But yeah, I don't think this is a bad idea, to be honest, because otherwise, halfway Glandon, you'll never see these 4 again.
Yeah, that's true. And to be honest, when I did see this breakaway, and when I saw the gap that they got, it never got that much of a gap in the first place. You know, like, It went up to, I think, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes at a certain point. But there were teams in the peloton that were controlling. And I went over the SD Works riders in the breakaway, didn't go over the rest. We've got Marcus and Van Empel for Visma Lease bike. Justine Riquière, obviously, because she went for the first QM points on the day and got them. And then Francisca Koch, Lucinda Brandt will play a valuable role in today's stage. Silke Smulders had been doing pretty good for Jayco and GC roughly as well. Arzoufi for Ceratizit, Faulkner and Rug for EF, Lianne Lippert and Baril for Movistar, taking note on that. Persico and Magnaldi for UAE, Fahia and Lemuel for Saint-Michel Aubert, and Alrut and Otterstad for Unomex. So, large group, and obviously, there's no broadcast at this point. Let me make that clear. The broadcast of the stage started a few kilometers into Col du Glandon, which means we didn't see the middle phase, the valley before Col du Glandon, but the ticker on PCS said Movistar is spacing in the peloton. And sorry, but I was expecting Canyon to try and keep the breakaway close so that the satellite rise of SD Works wouldn't be as valuable. Like all those kind of teams, FDJ Suez maybe in similar fashion, but I wasn't expecting Movistar to pull. And yes, they've got Meijering also in GC next to Lippert, but it's a bit weird to have Lippert in the break and then starting to pace behind it yourself.
She's 15th in GC. Like, it's not... Yeah, I don't know why they paced either. Maybe it was Canyon with Dygert, because that would make sense, because then you deny the use of the satellite riders for SD Works. The most notable name in there, just remember again, Lucinda Brand. On 2 minutes, she had the climbing performance of her career yesterday, unless I'm missing something, and she's in this break. She is going to be the most impactful rider in that breakaway. Did you mention Hikira taking the QM points?
Yep.
And so she mathematically was... But with that, she was mathematically looking pretty good. And so it's all coming down to Glandon. We get to Glandon, super hard climb, harder than the Alpe d'Huez, and her teammates Vollering all drop. Majoris, Wiebers, but to be honest, it's like, it doesn't really matter because they didn't have enough of a gap anyway. It really doesn't matter. It's inconsequential. But it's carnage at the bottom of the Glandon, right? Like, Faulkner's immediately gone. Good riders are dropping.
Yeah, Wiebes, Majoris, Rug, Faulkner, etc. I feel like I agree. The SD Works strategy to put those riders in the breakaway is good. They're just not having the right enough gap, and that's a gamble you make when you put those riders in that breakaway. So I've got nothing of a problem with that, even though it really kind of failed a bit. I have no issue with it. Col du Glandon starts for the peloton as well. Utrup Ludwig is spacing there, and the gap is only 1 minute at this point to the breakaway. So, like we said, pretty small. There's an attack in the breakaway then, Lucinda Brandt, who wants to keep the tempo going because she's like, only 2 minutes behind in GC. Might as well keep going and see where I get here. And if I can get far enough on this climb, I can not only do well for my GC, but also help out Realini as well. So she kept that going, and this causes other riders to drop again. So Hekira drops as well next to Vash and Bredewold. Aardegeest, Magnaldi, Alrut, Smulders, Lippert, and Arzoufi are the only ones that can follow Lucinda Brandt. Then in the peloton, it's FDJ Suez that keeps spacing after the Utrup Ludwig, keeps spacing with the next rider, but Arkea has had a special role in this race, you know? Squibon has attacked multiple times on a climb as like an anticipation move, I'd classify it as. And in this stage, we see Cavalar doing the same. The Austrian on Arkea. You spoke about her, was it yesterday?
Maybe. I thought it might have been her attacking when it was Squibon attacking. And I was like, who is Squibon? Because I know Cavalar is, because she went toe-to-toe with Bunel and Music in the Alps Grisvaudon Classic, a 1.1 race that I watched on YouTube about 2 months ago. And she was quite good there. Yeah, she's an ex-lightweight rower from, I think, Skulls. She competed in Tokyo for Austria. And like Jason Osborne was a rower, so we've seen this conversion before. And yeah, she looks like a super lightweight climber. And she was riding at a very good tempo, actually. Like, she very quickly took time.
Yep.
Where others couldn't, where bigger names like Garcia tried the same and got dropped. So very, very impressive performance. I don't know where she lost. She started the stage on 14 minutes. So I think this is like literally like her, this is her 20th cycling race in her career. Today is her 20th race.
That is crazy.
Yeah, so she's doing pretty well. Like, she was second on the Obisque behind Osterlatza. in
One could
the
say
Pyrenees
the
stage.
cavalry has arrived.
The cavalry has arrived.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, Arkea, I think her data's crazy because Arkea gave her a 4-year deal. A 4-year deal to end of 27. So her data must be crazy. And we saw that today on the climb. So big performance from her. But it's kicking off behind Benji. Bredevold, who was in the breakaway as a satellite rider, we don't see it enough, but I'm pretty sure she shreds on the front for a bit for SD Works because the Cavalier shredding, she's going so fast across to the remnants of the break, Lucinda Brandon, whoever, and then the peloton's also going the same speed as Cavalier. And I was like, well, someone must be pacing, and Bredevold cuts back, Fisher Black's pacing. So we know what's coming. Well, we think we know what's coming. SD Works obviously wanting to go from far, Benji, but now they have no satellite rider ahead if Demi does go.
Yeah, that is true. And we're entering the last 6-ish kilometers now of the Col du Glandon. In the last 6 kilometers, we've got 2 kilometers that is 10+%, then a bit lower 8% for 2 kilometers, and the last 2 kilometers are again 11.5% average. So the last 6K is super hard, and Fisher Black really tunes it up into that, and big riders start dropping. And everybody knows that I'm a fanatic member of the Juliette Labou fan club, and I'm afraid that the fan club was in tears on Glandon because Labou was dropping pretty early when Fisher Black was still pacing. And well, when you see the group go down to 8-9 riders likes of Gigante just holding on to the wheel at the back, you know the tempo is pretty high, and then Vollering hasn't even attacked yet. So you know when the tempo is that high, an attack is coming. It's undoubtedly at the moment because you said it, there's no one in the breakaway, but also it's not like Fisher Black is the most valuable rider in the valley after this climb either. So he might as well attack at that point. So I was waiting for that attack. I was looking at the terrain. Where could it go? Well, I could have gone on any steep section here, but there was one segment after a U-turn where it really started ramping up, in my personal opinion. And by the way, in the meanwhile, well, we got to talk about it. Cavalier, who attacked earlier, has gone past the breakaway. So she's at the front of the race. The breakaway is about to be caught, and that's when we see the attack in the tiny peloton.
Vollering goes, and almost immediately, I think within 10 seconds, Niewiadoma cannot respond. Royakkers is on the wheel of Niewiadoma, waits, and then goes very, very quickly across to Demi Vollering. Vollering is absolutely smashing it, and it looks right there. It looks, for all intents and purposes, like the TDFF is completely over. Like, Niewiadoma is losing. It goes to 30 seconds on Glandon, like that, within a K. And we've got another HC climb to come. There's riders all over the place. I don't know where Lucinda Brand is. You see Niewiadoma's with Rialini, Gigante, Music, and Lucinda Brand is yo-yoing a little bit in that group, but there is some cooperation here and there, like not consistent, but there is some times when Niewiadoma has other people pulling, but she's for the most part having to save her own TDFF at this point. But she said in the race interview afterwards that she thought it's all over at that moment. She had a really bad moment on Glandon, lost all her confidence, and you would, like, it's this, you've got another Alpe d'Huez to come, and you're getting a minute put into you by Vollering on the Glandon. So not looking good for Niewiadoma, but Royakkers, Benji. Vollering was pulling faces, and Royakkers, I don't know her well enough. Like, she is 31, but this is the best level she ever showed. She looked like mouth closed. She was chilling.
Yeah. Honestly, for the majority of the top of Glandon and what came afterwards, the biggest grimaces I saw from Royakkers were in the descent trying to follow Vollering. Because we know Royakkers isn't the best descender in the world, and we know that on the descent she was likely going to get gapped anyway, because she's significantly worse in descending than Vollering. And she kept holding on to Vollering on the Glandon. And yes, it's kind of a balance, you know, because on one end, Vollering might be okay with Royakkers going over the top with her, and there being another rider with her in the valley to relay with, if you think through it that way. So that's a potential strategy for Vollering at that point. But the gap towards Niewiadoma was increasing significantly, and you said it, a proper minute there. But what did you think at that point? Case closed? Vollering wins?
Royak, no, I did not actually. And listen, I've been the person beating the drum that Demi Vollering's the best. No one can touch her. When she presses go on the high mountains, it's all over. But you have to adapt to new information. And the new information is She went absolutely full gas on Glandon. She put a minute into Cassia. Great. That's still not enough for GC yet. We have a valley afterwards of 15 Ks. We have a descent to come. All the Alpe d'Huez. And Paulina Royakkers is ahead of Demi Vollering on GC by a measly 2 seconds, but she is ahead on GC. And Royakkers took a pull on Glandon. I'm sorry, but there is no way you take a pull at 2,000 meters after Demi's just attacked for 5 minutes, 7 minutes, absolutely full gas on 11%. There is no way you take a pull unless you feel good. There's no way. Even if you think, 50-50, I feel good, but I don't want to risk it. No, because it's Demi Vollering and you're Royakkers. She must have felt $1 million. And so when I saw that, I was like, this is a problem. Because what are you going to do? Ride the whole of the Alp with Royakkers in your wheel? And if she holds on and you've pulled for 50 minutes and she's done 0.2 watts per kilo less than you and just beats you in the last little kick by a centimeter, she wins GC. Royakkers. So I was like, this is not actually the best situation. If Royakkers was on 3 minutes, it's fine. She will pull all out to go onto the podium, but that's not the situation.
So we're getting to the top of Glandon. We've got Vollering, Royakkers catching up with Cavallard from the not breakaway, but from the earlier attack on the Glandon. So 3 riders at the front of the race. And then the second group was Niewiadoma, Realini, Brandt, and Muzic. I'm pretty sure as the 4 riders that went over the top.
And Gigante.
Was Gigante in there and then dropped in the descent?
Yeah.
Okay. And Fisher Black was dropped hard and then came back on the descent, is what I felt like.
Fisher Black's a good descender, yeah.
But if we have to take a look at the gaps here, the gap between Vollering group and Niewiadoma group was roughly a minute at the top of Glandon, I would say. But if we talk about Labouche, Rin van Andro, etc., Pietersen, they're on 3-4 minutes at this point.
Never to be seen again.
They're in Narnia. So it's all about these first 2 groups. And Brandt being in that second group, when I saw the last kilometer of Glandon and Brandt was still with Realini, her being in that early breakaway played such a vital role in getting Brandt in that group as well, I think. Even from the peloton, I think she wouldn't have made that.
No, she would not have made it from the peloton. She would have been a minute behind, probably. Or 30 seconds behind. Not enough to come back and do what she did. But before you even get to the valley where Brandt becomes the big character, there's an excellent bit of work by the SD Works soigneur. I've never seen it before. She holds the gilet up and threads the arm of the gilet, and Vollering puts her arm through on the move, and then it wraps around her with the speed, and it's already on her, and she just has to put the left arm in without breaking stride. It was unbelievable work. Royakkers the opposite. She was doing a Hindley Stelvio. She couldn't put the gilet on. She then got it on, couldn't zip it up. She basically didn't have it on for the first part of the descent. But this is where Vollering loses me here, Benji. You have 2 options, I think. You do your descent at your speed, full gas. She's a great descender, really good descender, and it's a great descent for her with punches in it, where she has more punch than Royakkers. Mainly because you also still have to keep your gap to Niewiadoma, and you don't want to give free time back on a descent from freewheeling or braking versus giving it back in a valley and then trying to take it back in a valley where you have to pedal.
Yeah.
So the descent is free time when you are technically as good, if not the best, one of the best in the world. And she did a recon of this in the rain already, this descent.
Yeah.
And the others might not have.
Especially because Niewiadoma's not a weak descender either. So if you wait on Royakkers or if you hold a little bit in to keep Royakkers with you for the valley, then you're going to be losing time to what comes behind. And it's not even just Niewiadoma, because out of nowhere, Demon Descender, certified Demon Descender, thermonuclear descent, Cédric Kerbal, comes out of nowhere towards Group 2, fly past Group 2, takes 15 seconds on them. Eventually, she drops back on a slight kicker. And I do want to talk about that kicker. It's about... So we've got the descent of Glandon. About 2/3 into that descent, you've got the Le Rivière d'Alemont. 1.5 kilometers at 5.9%.
It's a real hill.
And this is where Kerbal gets caught again by the Niewiadoma group. But I think Niewiadoma almost makes a mistake here, because she keeps kicking it to the point that Brandt starts dropping from the group. And you don't want to lose Brandt in Group 2, because she will, for free, ride the entire valley for Realini for you.
Exactly. So that was like Brandon in that group was huge, and Niewiadoma eventually didn't drop her. I think the biggest mistake Vollering and SD Works made today wasn't, I think, going on Glandon, absolutely fine. She takes a minute. And Niewiadoma's looks bad. What's the problem? She literally waits for Royakkers, who is a dog shit descender. Terrible descender. We saw Kerbal dropped her in one corner, put her on 3 seconds on a non-technical corner. She's a bad descender. Vollering literally waits for her, and I conservatively think she could have done this descent 30 seconds quicker with no risks. No extra, just literally doing... She's in the hoods, like literally like freewheeling to let her come back. And I believe Vollering tried to do a deal with Royakkers and said, if I don't drop you on the descent, you'll help me in the valley. Because when they get into the valley, I think in Dutch, Vollering says the descent is over and she's shouting at Royakkers. But the problem with that is, it's the last stage. Why wouldn't Royakkers renege on that agreement? What stick do you have to... Okay, oh, you didn't drop me on the descent. I'm just going to break my promise.
Yeah, but also, in addition to that, I feel like we need to discuss the Dutch conversation that was had there.
Yeah, I didn't. You should translate.
I think I understood Paulina Royakker saying wacht, which means wait. So whether she means that she wants to wait on group 2, which I also don't see necessarily as the ultimate solution.
No.
But when it comes to Vollering, she responds then with de afdaling is voorbij, or we hebben de afdaling gedaan. We did the descent. I don't know, like, I'm reading into this conversation probably way too much, but to me it felt like Royakkers wanted to wait on group 2.
Oh, nah, I think it's because Demi kept gapping her, and she's like, stop gapping me.
Oh, that's also a possibility.
Demi had just gapped her twice, without trying, by the way. Without trying.
Yeah,
she was...
Is that on the descent? Because now we're not on the descent anymore, eh? When that conversation is had?
Yeah, it was through like it was like a false slide downhill. To Royakkers, it was a descent. To Demi, it wasn't. But for sure, Demi waited for Royakkers, and I think she gives back 25 seconds at least to Niewiadoma. Yeah. She just gives it away. To then wait for someone, they get to the valley, and this is the next point of discussion, Benji. We have Group 2, Lucinda Brand, all-round ruler, unbelievable performance. She starts pulling super hard in the valley. But the gap's still 55 seconds. Mm-hmm. She's not moving the gap that much when Royakkers and Vollering are pulling. And Vollering, I would say, is doing 75% of the pulling. But then we get to about, I don't know, and also Kasia was doing some weird stuff. She pulled out of the line to make people go through. She was trying to get others to rotate with Brand. But then, anyway. Then Vollering starts to get fed up with Royakkers, Benji. She even taps her. She's like, you pull. She's saying she's not pulling long enough. Should Royakkers have been more cooperative, Benji? Bear in mind, she can win GC too. She's still on to win GC if she's better than Vollering on the last climb. Or should Vollering have just pulled and not worried? Or because the problem is you had to predict that this would happen. Like, you had to know that you are going to be dealing with someone that's uncooperative when you're at the top of Glandon or somewhere on the descent. And she has Fisher Black in the group behind. Like, there was the option to just fully wait.
There is the option to fully wait, but if you drop Niewiadoma on Glandon and you know you gapped her on a minute, don't you also have the confidence that you can do it again on Alpe d'Huez?
True, yeah. And you're still going to start with an advantage, so why would you give the 40 seconds back? But what happens is they start disagreeing, and Brand reduces the gap down to 30 seconds, and then Vollering starts like surge pulling. To be honest, what she should have done was just punish Royakkers, which Royakkers, right, she got peak watts, 450 watts. Okay, cannot sprint or accelerate. Just go in her wheel and sprint around her and attack her on the flat. And then, if you do that one time, trust me, she will keep pulling with you in the valley. She will pull. She won't sit in your wheel if you do that. So I think Vollering kind of chose the worst of both worlds. But still, Benji, it still looks like she's winning GC. Like, at this point.
Because what we've seen on Glandon is technically easily dropping Niewiadoma. So you'd expect from that point onwards that, okay, we'll get to the climb. She's going to start extending the gap again. And that's kind of what happens. The gap, yes, it dropped to 35 seconds, but then Alpe d'Huez starts. And in the first 3.5 kilometers of Alpe d'Huez, it's Vollering pacing herself. Ruijkers not taking over on the climb. So Ruijkers is just staying in the wheel, but still great performance for her so far. Curious what she'll do on the last 8.5 kilometers. But the gap has already grown from 35 seconds to 1 minute 05, 1 minute 10. So in the first 3 kilometers of Alpe d'Huez, Niewiadoma has lost half a minute again on Vollering. So I was thinking, okay, if this keeps going at this tempo, Vollering wins GC or Ruijkers wins GC, depending on what happens in the Group 1. But then I don't know, I tweeted at that exact moment because Ruijkers was staying in the wheel because I felt like Vollering was getting nervous or annoyed.
Yes,
and I tweeted,
for sure.
The worst enemy of Vollering right now is her getting nervous about Ruijkers sitting in the wheel, because then she's going to be like, take over, and then she's not going to pull full. And then, I don't know, did you feel like she pulled full for the next 5 kilometers?
She couldn't.
While she was complaining?
What are you going to do? Pull full for 45 minutes with someone in your wheel who's 2 seconds ahead of you on GC, and you didn't drop on 3Ks 10% to 2,000 meters on the climb before. That's the problem with Ruijkers being there.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't just pull and do a time trial. Because if you do that, and then Ruijkers just glides past you in the last 300 meters, you look like a moron. So the ideal, maybe what she was trying to, now maybe what she should do, Benji, and maybe what she did do is you ride the first 5K, 6Ks full, and you try to get the gap to Cassia, who's cracking, to 2 minutes. And then you can play a bit. But
if you can do that.
But it didn't happen. Course. It didn't happen. Cassia, I thought she was done. She just holds this at 105 for half an hour, I think.
Yeah, from 8.5 kilometers to go to 6.5 to 5.5 to 4.5 kilometers to go. It just sticks on 105, and I was like, okay. It went up from 35 seconds to 110. I was expecting it to keep going, and it just stagnated completely. And I feel like Niewiadoma, maybe a bit of a second wind happened where she found herself a little bit, she got her rhythm going. She kept stamping those pedals. Like, she had a grimace on her face for the last hour of this race, which it reminded me of Veuclair dying on the Galibier in his yellow jersey back in the day. The only difference is that Niewiadoma is looking like she might actually end up winning this Tour de France Femmes still, because she's keeping that gap under what it needs to be. But it's all about seconds we're talking. We said before, 1:15 is what it is in GC before the stage starts.
Plus bonies.
Holding around 1:05 at the moment. And that's without considering the bonies like you mentioned. So it's all super close. And we start to enter the last 3.5 kilometers. And then it starts going the other way. And how much of that is Niewiadoma speeding up versus Vollering maybe slowing down?
I think Niewiadoma started to speed up at 5Ks to go or 4Ks to go, and then also she starts to get a relay or two from Riolini. Muzic also attacks, and then Cassia goes all out to respond to her with maybe 2.3Ks to go, and I was almost thinking, mistake. I was thinking mistake because she's just taken 15 seconds riding her tempo. You do this big anaerobic burst. I was like, is she going to crack herself? She doesn't. And then now she has the draft benefit of Muzic. It's not steep all the way on Alpe d'Huez. It's 6% with 2Ks to go. And then it's 3% the last K. The draft really, really matters.
But at the front, we also get an attack. It's not from Vollering, but we see on the left side of the road that the Ruijkers goes past Vollering. And I feel like it was a bit of a move. And we got to talk about it. Forgot to mention it. A kilometer earlier, I swear, in a U-turn, Vollering tried to drop Ruijkers out of the U-turn, I feel like. And it didn't work.
Seated. You could tell. And she was accelerating.
The Ruijkers probably felt that and saw maybe an opportunity, because she then went to the front about a kilometer, 500 meters later, and she started hammering it at the front. Then, to me, it felt like Vollering was struggling in the wheel for a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Ruijkers was putting it into her, because she couldn't counter afterwards, and Ruijkers. That's why I almost feel like, was Ruijkers too uncooperative this climb? I was thinking, because the way she rode it, it put GC. First of all, she's losing a spot on GC with Niewiadoma coming back. Secondly, if she can't win GC, obviously, if Niewiadoma's within a minute 15 herself. Thirdly, how is she going to win the stage? Her only way to win the stage is for it to be a pure climbing effort. If it gets to a punch in the last K, which I repeat is 3% average and also has a flat section, she's getting out punched even if Vollering's on her last leg. So I was like, maybe but in the interview afterwards, she said like, I was at risk of cracking. I'm not going to pull with, and also you could see when Vollering was accelerating sometimes, she was actually hurting a lot. She was like getting gapped a little bit. So it's hard to criticize Royackers for having the performance of her career, you know? I think she still played it fine.
Last 2.5 kilometers, you said it. We've got Muzic attacking in that second group. You've got Royackers making that move up front. We're talking about the gap that is now down to 55 seconds, 53 seconds. So
46.
It's starting to lean towards Niewiadoma in the last 2 kilometers, but there's still that final ramp to the finish line. So honestly, with how it was virtually looking with 2 kilometers to go, we would have a finish with 3 riders fighting for the GC victory of one of the Grand Tours of the season in the last kilometer
with 10 seconds within
last stage.
It's unbelievable. This is like an organizer's dream. And you didn't know who was going to win because Vollering looked beatable. Cassia's come back from the ashes. Royackers, who knows what she can do. And then the time gaps go. We see Taylor Phinney cheering on Niewiadoma at the side. The gap goes to 50 seconds. It goes out a little bit again. And we know that Vollering is the most explosive, I think, of these 3 riders at the end of a long climb. And that is the case. She does a huge effort there's a ramp with 800 to go. She's really putting it into Royackers here. And then through the last left-hand corner, gaps her off the wheel. Again, technically, like I'm telling you, like technically Vollering was so superior to Royackers. She just gaps her just through the corner. Yeah. And then when she sprints out of the corner and actually empties the tank, she puts 4 seconds into Royackers, who she's not been able to distance for 2 hours. When she actually opens up the sprint and she wins the stage, taps her head, big celebration. But then
after the line, though.
After the line, no, she didn't give up time. She didn't give up time.
Okay,
but she did. She tapped her head, and then Royackers comes in, takes the 6 bonies, and is 4 seconds back. So she's for sure got the podium locked up. Muzic, she had been really impressive. She works with Niewiadoma and then stops working with her into the final sprint because, you know, why would she? And she actually, Niewiadoma opens up her sprint early and Muzic comes around her gradually and takes away the 4 remaining bonus seconds, kind of like Jorgensen and Carlito Rodriguez in the Dauphiné, but this is much bigger stakes. We're looking at count back. The gap is 101 to Niewiadoma, and she's held on to win GC over Demi Vollering by 4 seconds. Benji, we've never covered a Grand Tour that's finished with GC crazy. This close. We've never, where it was this close into the last 100 meters. In the last 400 meters, Niewiadoma could have lost it. This was just an unbelievable finish. I just was gobsmacked. We had to delay recording the podcast. One of the best stages I've ever watched.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'll be honest, it is a shame that the broadcast starts into Glandon, that we don't see more of the race. But once the TV started kicking off, it was action from start to finish. And yes, there's a little bit of the valley zone in between, but you need that. You need that, like the pacing in the stage. And on Glandon, there was super action. And every single stage, the best stage of cycling that I have seen personally, unpredictability is a very big part of that. And it's not the unpredictability that the UCI is looking for by removing radios. It's the unpredictability of like, oh, at first there's this rider that has the upper hand, but then this rider fights back. And then this rider could actually win as well. And we've got 3 riders that are fighting for the overall victory in the last kilometer of the stage. And that is the unpredictability that I love in cycling. And for that to happen here, honestly, great stage win by Demi Vollering, but the suffering that Niewiadoma went through in this stage, mentally on Glandon dropping like that, then in the valley benefiting from Brandt, who plays a valuable role. Give her some champagne, please, Niewiadoma. She deserves it.
Niewiadoma even referred to it in the post-race interview.
Very valuable. But then on the final climb, to be able to hold on to that thought of, okay, if I just keep doing my own tempo, I might still make it. And it started leaning her way, and then she takes the yellow jersey of the Tour de France Femmes home. And Niewiadoma was always the amazing second, the popular second, you know, in cycling, in women's cycling. And then we've got this year where she ended up winning Flash 1 finally.
I think we deserve some credit for this, no? Quite a lot of credit, I think.
How?
We started abusing her. We started shouting, being like, "Just win a race." We started cheering / a bit of positive negativity. Like, come on, Cassie, you're so good, win a race this year. And we said, this is the year she'll do it. So, yeah, I think we deserve also a lot of credit.
Well, for 3 years, we said that she would win every single race, hoping that she would. And this year, we then gave up on that.
Pretty much, yeah. This was just incredible. And like to see someone break down in tears. Everyone's crying. Yeah. Vollering looks absolutely shell-shocked. Like, she breaks down in tears. Or she almost can't cry. She's so shell-shocked. Niewiadoma can't. She's also like can't believe what's happened. And like we said, imagine you've just for 2 hours thought you're losing the yellow jersey like the whole time, and you don't really know how far ahead they are. Like they're not watching on TV. They're at max heart rate. It was just
4 seconds.
4 seconds for the Tour de France.
So many places in an 8-day stage race where 4 seconds could have been gained. Like, even today, you spoke about the descent being very valuable in that. She could have taken more time in the descent by leaving Royakkers behind.
That's the problem with waiting for Royakkers, is it means Niewiadoma comes 30 seconds closer.
Yeah. And in addition to that, there's also moments in the last week where you could say, oh, could she have attacked yesterday maybe, where she thought the gradients weren't high enough, where she ends up dropping Niewiadoma at the finish line? Maybe that's a possibility. But also, we can't deny the fact that after she crashed on stage 5, her team only sent Broe to help her late. And in my opinion, if Wibbes waited, or if the team made Wibbes wait at that point, Vollering wins the Tour de France Femmes.
Oh, there's so many places where they didn't. Their idea was that, and I'm of like the both.
Today is the only day they really rode for her, in my opinion.
They did ride for her today, but I think that was the plan. And like, I've always been very like, Demi Vollering's the best, and she was the strongest today after crashing hard 3 days ago. Let's not pretend like Vollering wasn't the strongest today. She was, but she wasn't that superior today because she didn't drop Paulina Royakkers, couldn't just drop her off the wheel, and she only put 30 seconds into Niewiadoma on the whole of Alpe d'Huez. Now, how much did Royakkers being with her helped? 0 the whole time. I think it's negatively. It cost her more time than it possibly could have helped. She's
frustration.
Suppressing, not going all out, because you can't ride a full TT with someone 2 seconds ahead of you in your wheel. You don't know. So, but yeah, I think and I've always, as I say, when Vingegaard was 3 minutes ahead of Pogačar in the 2022 Tour, Benji, you remember it was like,
yes,
before Alticam, it's like, we got to take another minute. You never know what can happen. You never know what can happen. Like, and so
it's like 2020 Tour de France.
It's what Rossi did in 2022.
We were very critical during that Tour de France, despite Jumbo-Visma being in yellow, about the fact that they weren't taking every chance to gain more time on competitors, including Pogačar. And then on Planche Belfi, it backfires. Like, today...
You never know.
Yeah, and it's also... On other stages, we didn't see just odd tactics in general. Like,
but that's just the basics. They never went for a bony sprint for her that suited her. They never went for the stage that suited her to put her in play with having a superior sprint.
Never a proper lead out before today.
Yeah, it just was like on the Liège stage. Like, could she have gone clear there and taken 20 seconds and then Group 2 syndrome takes over? Good chance it could have. Maybe Park Peterson pulls anyway, but you never know what could happen. And what could happen did happen, which was you crash, you lose a minute, you maybe not at your best, you're still good enough to win, but you don't. And I think this is a fantastic result because for women's cycling to have... Because the strongest riders shouldn't always just win. Team tactics matter. Team cohesion matters. Canyon SRAM, they lost Shabby too. They lost Shabby at the start of this race. They didn't have their best mountain domestique for Niewiadoma. Bradbury crashed. She couldn't help because she's banged up, but she's still stuck in the race and tried to help her most. Dygert, excellent work as a domestique this week. Dygert's also the reason Niewiadoma wins this race because Dygert does a team pursuit or an individual pursuit after the crash on stage 5. and rips that gap open. She's the one that did that. So Dygert deserves the plaudits. She was a very good teammate this Tour de France. So tactics matter, Benji, and also it's good to have a different winner. It's good to have, because now it's, Vollering's got to come back.
True, and it's also the thing with SD Works. It was only a matter of time before the shenanigans in the team, whether it's tactics or people management, ended up costing them again. Because we saw it a few years ago. What was it, 2022, where they threw Roubaix? Sorry, but they were riding for Chantal Blaak and Majerus, while Kopecky was the obvious leader in that race for them. And there's often these situations with SD Works where they end up winning because their riders are just that strong. But reality is, you can't always negate poor tactics and poor decision making with being the strongest. And I think in this race, it's a perfect example of that. Their shenanigans cost them the race, but that doesn't take away from the fact that Niewiadoma is the one where their team did try and make the best of it for Niewiadoma. And even the most important part, the most valiant thing for Niewiadoma for me is that, yes, she lost 4 seconds yesterday, but she tried attacking Vollering yesterday to gain more time before today, which is exactly what SD Works didn't do. Try and take more time before today.
Yeah, Lorena Wiebe said it best herself when she saw the yellow thing on the floor after stage 5. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference because Demi will just kill them in the mountains anyway. And, on the mountains, Demi was the best, but there was a valley. There's other team dynamics behind. And, yeah, hats off to Niewiadoma. That is one of the grittiest performances I've ever seen. She looked fucked, and she just kept fighting. And man, that's one of the just craziest finals. And I'm also glad, as you said, Ben. I'm glad SD Works lose. I'm sad for Vollering, but yeah. I'm glad they lose because they didn't deserve to win GC here. So they get the humiliation of everybody knowing they should have won GC, and they didn't. And so, yeah, tough luck. And Demi leaves next year, reportedly to FDJ Suez. So, but yeah, I'll remember this stage forever. I can't believe it was just crazy.
Really good stage. And also, 10 seconds between the podium. That's insane.
Wow, yeah, I should do the stage results, I guess. Vollering wins 4 seconds at Roy, gets 101 ahead of Music Niewiadoma. Riolini not far behind, 131. 3:15 to Kerbal, 3:34 to Cavallard. Gigante finishes on 5:10. I dare say Gigante did the Alpe d'Huez the second fastest, or maybe the third fastest, because she got hella dropped on the descent, but she climbed really well. Fisher Black 5:14. Brown 7:06 is 10th. GC Niewiadoma, as I said, wins by 4 seconds. Benji, yes, Royak is on 10 seconds. Wow. Muzic moves from 9th to 4th on 1:21. Riolini 2:19. Kerbal loses the podium, goes to 2:51, but 6th is still pretty good. Should be happy with that. Gigante moves up 10 spots because she climbed so well today. Great to see her showing her talent, the young Australian. 7:09 in 7th. Lucinda Brand moves into the top 10 and helps Riolini take the white. She eligible?
No,
Riolini,
it's
Riolini is
right?
super old. Yeah, Peterson. She's 23. See you
Might as well
later.
retire at this point.
Yeah. Lebu had a bad day. She got 8:07. Talia de Jong holds on to a top 10. I actually think Talia de Jong will be happy with holding on. And it's tight there. Wow.
Yeah.
8th to 11th is within 22 seconds. And Peterson goes from 2nd to 11th. She really struggles and loses 9 minutes, and they drop her.
I feel like this Grand Tour, yes, it was a big fight between Vollering and Niewiadoma, but there's so many smaller stories.
Yeah.
Kerbal being a demon descender, I will remember that. Genuinely, that's probably one of my favorite riders right now, which is weird to say. Because she won a stage, but it's also, I've always been a fan of riders that attack and descend like crazy people. She's one of those people. Gigante being able to get that top 10 after, let's be honest about it, she had some shit years in cycling because of injuries, and then in Movistar it didn't work out. Then she was shipped off to Asia Insurance, where they have now signed her for a longer period. No, out of contract. No. Maybe they will sign her for a longer contract.
Asia Insurance don't have many under contract, so I think that's not on her. That's more the team.
Yeah, Talita de Jong, for example, being one of the more consistent riders of the year, she's had a hell of a season. To the Normandy, top 10 there. Valenciana, top 10 in GC, but it's also in the classics, top 20s in RVV, top 10 in Gent-Wevelgem, but then in GCs of the Vuelta, getting a top 20 there, but getting top 15s on the mountain stages. Itzulia getting top 10 throughout the entire year. She's been so incredibly consistent, and I don't know what to expect from her in the future. She's not 21, she's 30, but I feel like this is a must sign for any World Tour team next season.
Oh yeah, for sure. Unless Lotto extend her, but I don't know what's happening with the women's team. Lotto Destiny ladies. With
Pro team division
Destiny
next
stepping
year?
out. Oh yeah, they're not a World Tour team.
Yeah, but
next year.
I
they
feel
adding
like
pro team?
2025 or 2026, women's cycling is adding a pro team division between the World Tour one and the Continental one.
Okay.
And maybe Lotto might try to go for the pro team and therefore try to keep Talita de Jong, but it's a must keep for them, but it's definitely a must sign for World Tour teams.
It just goes to show that like the right environment or the right situation or just, I don't know, just time or different training can change a rider, even if they have been like the women's peloton. Roy Akers is 31. And today she comes second on the Queen stage and third in the Tour de France, missing out on the win by 10 seconds. And she's been riding like, you know, in World Tour for like 5 years, just about 4 years. And she was on Park Hotel, who are not bad at all before that. And she's won 2 races in her life, a 2.2 and a 1.1 classic about 2.5 seasons ago. Okay, yeah, she was 4th in the Giro this year, but like she's taken a huge step up the last 3-4 months. So, which is fantastic to see. I thought she was just like a second tier puncher for the Ardennes.
True. It's very true. And I'm also curious what Buck Peterson will grow into in the future now, because we've seen her first stage race getting 11th in GC, but she's been very active throughout the stage races. And I feel like winning that stage 4 is a sign of more. Getting top 10 is possible in the future, depending on what her goals are. But I feel like the classics might be the main goal for her in the next couple of years, looking at what she did already. But I also want to talk about SD Works now for a second. We've hammered in, yes, they made mistakes throughout this week, and yes, that could have cost them the victory. Yes, that doesn't take away from Nivea Don's victory, but what do you do if you're SD Works? Vollering is leaving, and is it too late to learn from your mistakes of the last few years? Because this is not the first time, eh? This has been an active thing that's been happening every year of the last 4 years where there's shenanigans going on in the team. Is it because they're not self-evaluating enough?
No, we're not even near the environment of self-evaluation, what we're talking about here. There is no self-evaluation. Like, this is emotions, egos, personality clashes, grudges. This is not like the environment for, how should we optimize the race planning to win the most races with our team, regardless of what happens next year. So, which is unfortunate for Vollering, but it is what it is. We'll see. Will it improve with Van der Breggen getting back on the bike next year? Doubt it. Maybe it will, because actually Van der Breggen was actually she's very selfless. She always helped her teammates. She helped Vollering win races when she was riding. So she wasn't a selfish rider herself when she rode, but I don't know. So,
because it's always hard to judge the team car of a team, but if you and especially because a team that wins a lot, how much of that is due to the team car? How much of that is due to the riders? And with SD Works, I lean more towards the riders being that strong and not necessarily to the team car being that genius.
Yeah, well, they've always had the best riders. And yeah, it's just but in the end it bites them on the arse in this Tour de France Femmes and blows up in their face, and so they leave with 2 stage wins. They were both won by Demi Vollering. Wiebes didn't win a stage, right?
No.
She got that 8th though.
She got
so
8th.
She'll always carry that 8th with her. She'll always carry that 8th with her.
8th on stage 5. Drop the yellow thing, but
so yeah, but yeah, we've done that to death. And that's why I'm glad Cassia wins. So this is fantastic for women's cycling. It's fantastic because also like this was better than any of the men's mountain stages this year in the Tour de France by a considerable margin. Like this was like Grenoble level to me, almost like Grenoble level. Like the tension was crazy. Grenoble was more shocking.
Grenoble level, but the fact that it's not broadcasted, a longer segment of the race, does impact my ability to be fully immersed by the time Glandon hits. Because I like to have the build-up towards Glandon in a stage. I like to see, okay, SD Works puts multiple riders in the breakaway.
Yeah, what's
How
their
are the
plan?
teams reacting to that? What's their plan? That build-up towards Glandon.
Yeah.
More broadcast of the stage would have made me more enjoy it. Secondly, the fact that it clashes with the Vuelta, honestly, couldn't care less about the Vuelta today. We'll jump into the stage later. But the Vuelta being on the sidelines, being there, does make it harder for me to immerse fully in a stage.
So we had to turn our minds to the Vuelta this week. Me and you, we had to do a preview. We had to turn our minds to it.
And I would have rather be able to focus 100% on Tour de France Femmes and take it all in, because I feel like I would have enjoyed today 5% more.
I thought
it deserved that.
Yeah, a little bit longer. I mean, I will say that, like, the Dauphiné also does not have full coverage of all the stages. Two wrongs don't make a right. Two wrongs don't make a right, of course. But
for me, the Tour de France Femmes is bigger than the Dauphiné in terms of how I perceive it. It isn't.
Yeah, but commercially, that might not be true.
Yeah, commercially, that's not true. But for me, as a cycling fan of both men's cycling and women's cycling, this is the biggest race in women's cycling. For the biggest race in women's cycling, I want the Queen stage to be broadcasted from the foot at least of Col du Glandon, if not longer.
I agree with you there, because we're talking 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
To be honest, for that one stage, just give us the whole thing.
Yeah. Because on the other stages, I will push back a little bit and say, like, some of the other stages, like, there's a peloton running side by side. I'm sorry, it's like the Vuelta today. You can broadcast it, but I'm not going to watch it, like, until it actually comes. Like, they're riding 33 k's an hour side by side. So, but today I agree with you. I agree, and that goes for other stages throughout the year. So, but yeah, I want to be positive though, like super entertaining, and this is the Tour de France I'll never forget, and it really livens things up for next year. Some housekeeping before we move to the Vuelta. Vos wins the points jersey ahead of Wiebes, and the Nividoma actually is in third. QOM, Justine Gekir is a very popular winner of that. She wins that comfortably in the end, actually, by 12 points over Demi Vollering. The youth jersey, Pug Peterson wins by 107 ahead of Van Anrooy. Again, I will say Van Anrooy, I think not her best race in the end, and Little Trek win teams classification, which I think is actually a pretty fair representation of Little Trek. I think they were very strong, actually. Between Brand, Van Anrooy, and Riolini across all the stages. So, that's the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. What a finish! Crowned Cassia Niewiadoma, and we'll see. We've got obviously the World Championships coming up, so it's not the end of women's cycling this year, and there's probably some other races I'm missing in between there. But onto the Vuelta stage 2, just quickly from Cascais to Urim. 194 kilometers long. We have 5Ks, 5% to start off, and then there's an intermediate sprint with 3-2-1 bonies plus green jersey points. Well, 140Ks in. There is then a 2K, 7% climb, a category 4 climb, which gives 1 KOM point at the end of like a false flat uphill, and then a descent drag before an uphill kicker to the line, not steep, like 2-3% we're talking here, maybe 4% in parts. It seemed, Benji, we were going to have our siesta breakaway. There may be no sprint teams here, but there was also no appetite to go on this break.
Yeah, for sure, but one of the riders in the breakaway was pretty known in the sport of cycling, I would say. Luis Angel Mate, the king of Vuelta breakaways, was in the breakaway together with, I think, Ibon Ruiz of Equipo and Pharma. Let's hope I'm right on those names, because no notes for this stage. I was taking notes of Tour de France Femmes in the meanwhile. But that breakaway, it was controlled. You know, and you can expect that it will be controlled. I skipped over the fact that we had a crash in the neutral zone, and Dylan van Baarle hit the deck. And unfortunately, when Dylan van Baarle crashes, he breaks something. So he's out of the race. Well, we don't know if it's a fracture, but we know that he's out of the race, so it's probably more serious than just a little bruise. So unfortunate to see Van Baarle leave the race, and that leaves one rider less for Visma Lease Bike in this race, and adds to the pile of DNFs they have this season because of injuries, unfortunately. But we get through the stage. There's an intermediate sprint. I think Ruiz and Luis Angel Mate. I think Mate takes it, maybe the IS ahead of Ruiz.
The IS. I don't know what's going on here. So I had to check the rules last night.
Yeah.
And unless am I mistaken? Where's Mate? No, I'm not mistaken.
Seconds at the IS, right?
There's 6, 4, and 2 bonies. So so basically, Vácek was on the same time as Van Aert, 2 seconds, but he was less hundredths of a second because he did beat him in the TT. So if Vácek finishes the stage tied on time with Van Aert, both in the lead, Vácek takes the red jersey. Yeah. If Groves is out of it, Strong is out of it because they didn't do a good TT.
Yeah.
So we then have, who else was close? McNuggets. So if the breakaway doesn't take the bonies and say Vácek or Van Aert takes 6, Vácek takes 4, McNulty takes 2, then Van Aert has to play second or better to take red. So actually the bonus seconds there was a lot of different things that could have happened. In the end, 2 of the guys take it, and then Groves takes 2 seconds, so it's irrelevant. But I was actually surprised that Trek didn't pull Benji to put that in play for Vácek to take red. Because he's not going to win he's not going to probably place in the final sprint, but if it's a sprint of 3 or if he goes on that climb before it, I don't know. It was the way to maybe take the red jersey.
That's true. I feel like I need to get the exact results of the intermediate sprint because they're definitely not in my head. But if I recall correctly, Groves beat Wout van Aert at the IS. Didn't Vácek still finish third of them behind them?
But that's what I mean. He could take it. But yeah, he didn't go on the hill. I don't know.
You expected an attack before that, you mean?
Yeah, because there was a kicker. There was a steep climb just before. And it's like, Van Aert's happy to do a sprint at the IS, following the wheels, especially if his competitors for the sprint, Caden Groves, Corbin Strong, they're also having to do a sprint. It's all equal.
Yep.
Does he want to do a 2-minute absolutely full gas anaerobic effort before the sprint on the hill?
Against an Alpecin train? Because Alpecin would probably do a lead out though, eh?
Yeah, I'm overthinking it probably. In the end, nothing matters. We get to the... Well, I mean, it's a chance to take the red jersey for a young rider. Yeah, it's not nothing in a Grand Tour.
Nothing happens for Vácek on the IS, but something happens on the climb. We get to the Alto da Batalha, and I gotta be honest, not much happened in between. The break has been called by now. We're on the climb that, well, there's the climb, descent, finished. Basically, on the climb, there's not too much happening, and there's a K1 point on top. You said it with action there, but before we get there, at a certain point, the camera goes to the back of the peloton, and we see Vácek together with, I think, a Lotto rider, maybe, standing by the side of his bike, him getting up, and we see that your boy Vácek has crashed, and he gets up, and he doesn't go full Lopez, because Miguel Lopez was like, bam, bam, bam on the spectator.
He wanted to punch him. You could tell.
He does like the swipe. He does a swipe, and when I saw the swipe, I was thinking, okay, someone must have crashed Vácek. A spectator must have caused the crash of Vácek. Did we see a replay of that?
I didn't see it exactly, but for sure fans. And they nearly crashed other people. This was a bad moment. There's lots of drunk people, I think, in the heat on this climb. Listen, at this Portuguese Gran Partida, there was no fans at the TT yesterday, and not a lot of fans, I must say. But I know it's hot. But yeah, on this climb, there were fans and there were people running side by side, nearly crashing on the right-hand side where Ineos were. And then, yeah, Vácek goes down. And this, I swear the shirtless guy was shouting back at him too and abusing Vácek back. So, yeah, not great. In the end, it doesn't matter. He seems okay. But, you know, it's yeah, it is what it is. This happens. But yeah, he was very annoyed about Sega. It's not what you want when maybe he thought he could contest the final sprint uphill. Like, he's not bad.
Yeah.
On
We saw
a
it at the
final
IS.
uphill. Yeah, he's quick.
He's not a terrible sprinter.
No.
He's solid. He can top five sprints, I would say, in this Vuelta, because the field is like only 4 sprinters here. So everybody can top 5 the sprint in the Vuelta. But that being said, we get over the climb. Stefan Küng comes out of nowhere. What? He's fighting for the KOM points. He takes KOM points, but did you see the sprint? Because I feel like I saw Küng going for the IS, and then I saw Bora riders responding in some fashion.
I didn't see. I was watching the women's race, I got to say.
Me too.
But I assume Soler also went for it. I thought there might have been some counterattacks, like we said, like the Krohn-style Catalunya one here. I don't know if it was Bora just responding to Soler, and then it all came back together. But yeah, this was like, because Visma then put Attila Valter on the front to control things for the Van Aert sprint. They were looking, without Van Baarle, they're looking thin on the ground. But actually, the GC teams really, they locked this stage down more than any sprint team could have. Red Bull, they got a train on the left-hand side. They're not wanting a repeat of the Tour de France. Ineos, they're lining it out for Carlito and Aronsman. But then we got a fast descent. Vatsek comes back. We're lining it out. We've got Coquard, Strong, Bittner, Groves, Aberasturi, all possible to win the stage. And I think it was a 4Ks to go, Benji. Also, Alpecin have 2 riders off the back, Plancart and another. I think it might have been a mech. Because like they made it over the climb. There's no reason why Plancart would just drop here on the descent. Which 4K rule to go doesn't help you when you're a lead-out man trying to help Groves win the sprint. So Groves is down 2 men. We then see a crash with 2.1 Ks to go, and it involves some serious riders. Johnny Narvaez, who could have gone for the stage today, Max Poole, DSM's GC rider, and Joshua Tarling. He's almost he looked badly hurt, or at least rattled. He stays down for a while. Now, he doesn't have to get up quickly because 2K to go, it doesn't matter. But he crashes hard, and that's very unfortunate for him. And particularly Narvaez is denied the opportunity to go for the stage. So that sucks. But we get to the lead-up, Benji, and it's the classic... Oh, sorry, you want to fill on before I do the lead-up?
Well, I just wanted to add that they were put in the same time. And yeah, Tarling looked the worst of that crash. But when it comes to lead-outs, like you said, Plankart's in Narnia because of potential mechanical there. And honestly, I was expecting Affini to come out at a certain point. But I'm also thinking he's the pilot. Pilot fish. Is that how they say it in French? Fish pilote, whatever.
Poisson pilote.
Poisson pilote. The lead out. He's like a single man lead out for Van Aert. There's no like person behind Affini. Affini needs to do it himself. But the logical thing is also, if Alpecin lead out is slightly hindered, then they've got limited riders because Plankart's not there. Then that becomes a bit more effective. And he goes to the front of Affini at 1.3 kilometers to go. And I'm thinking, on one end, you'd say one rider for 1.3 kilometers, you're fucked. But then
uphill
you think
too.
It's Affini. And for some reason, I had confidence in the man.
Well, I mean, because there is no other lead out. The lead outs don't exist. Like, Affini was dead for like 10 seconds at the end. Van Aert was looking around like, surely someone else. I think Van Aert wanted another lead out to jump, like at 500.
The higher the speed, the better for Wout van Aert in a sprint.
500 meters to go. I think he's like, someone else come around. I'm bigger. Jon Aberasturi, see you later. And he'll get into the wheel and then get his own lead out. But that doesn't happen. Everyone waits. And so Affini is he's had to do a monster pull. He's still going. And then at this uphill drag, Van Aert's eventually like, I have to launch at some point. He's got Caden Groves, the man he doesn't want in his wheel. Van Aert launches, goes to the left-hand side of the road, opens up Groves pretty quickly. Groves wasn't even in the draft that long, to be honest. Groves just went 5 pedal strokes. He's level. It levels off after the dipper, and then Groves puts a bike length into Van Aert, winning the sprint pretty comfortably. Van Eytvelt, I think, was third wheel starting the sprint. Corbin Strong has to come around him, but he can't beat Van Aert for second. Paul Mikel and Akipo Confirmers fourth. Van Eytvelt, this is the sprint field, Benji. Lennart Van Eytvelt's fifth, beating Pavel Bittner. I don't know what Van Eytvelt, what business he has contesting this sprint.
And
good
also,
good on the man.
He did a sprint before the sprint because he was not in position. then he passed people, and then he had to sprint again for the line. So he
What a
basically
man.
did a double sprint and got fifth. So that's a great result. And then we go to sixth, Pavel Bittner, like you said. I feel like multiple of the riders of DSM were waiting with Max Poole as well, who crashed.
Yeah.
But maybe that would have given him more chance if he had his full team there. I don't know. Jona Barasturi getting 7th. Vlasov gets 8th. Brandon Rivera 9th. Baroncini 10th. Thoughts?
Well, yeah, that sort of said this is a classic Vuelta sprint field, you know, and we said the two best sprinters in this race are Groves and Van Aert, and we see that maybe the best pure sprinter is Groves, and he wins another stage, 5 Vuelta stages for Caden Groves, 3 Catalunya stages, and he wins World Tour a lot. Like, he's won 10 World Tour races, I think, in his career. Like, he's never somebody, people say Milan, Merlier, etc., but in terms of, I don't know where he's signed next year, Caden Groves, but in terms of, this is what Ethan Hayter was supposed to be at Ineos.
The rumor is Astana, eh?
I think that got then denied. There was a counter rumor.
Oh, okay. All these rumors and counter rumors, all media speculation, eh?
Coquard 14th, he'll be very disappointed with that. You know, like, he's being beaten by GC riders on a finish that suits him.
But it was here.
Well, they had an announcement when we did the preview. So, you know who would have potentially won this, or Luis Aula, but I think he had to leave the Vuelta last year. So we'll draw a line under that. But yeah, this kind of went, there's nothing really to report. This is what we expected. Like, this is the 3 best sprinters of Groves, Van Aert, strong, and that's what happened. Van Aert with the bonies goes 3 seconds out of McNulty. He's in the red jersey. Vacek is on 5 seconds. So they're still close. Kung's on 9 seconds. Points jersey, Groves is 7 points ahead of Van Aert because of the TT. Like, if it wasn't for the TT, Groves would be quite a bit ahead. Kung's in the KOM. Vacek keeps white, and UAE's in teams. So yeah, that's the sprint, Benji. I guess. Yeah, what do we learn?
What did we learn? Not too much, I'd say. I was also expecting between Groves and Wout van Aert. You went for Groves. I think I went for Van Aert on today's stage. Maybe tomorrow's the other way around. It's all possible. And
I think in the
tomorrow
preview
we do have
flipped it to
stage 3. What, sorry?
In the preview, I think we flipped it to.
Yeah, I don't know. Stage 3 from Loza. I think I pronounced that correctly. Don't want to get the Portuguese on me again. To Castelo Branco, 191.5 kilometers. Basically a more pure sprint stage than today, no? Yes, there's climbs in the middle of the stage.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a bonus sprint at 137k into the race, so 50k to go, but I'd guess that would be taken by the breakaway. So I'm guessing Groves versus Wout van Aert again.
I think so, and it's more a pure sprint, as Benji said, because there's no descent into the run-in. It's like 50k's of 40k's of flat, where the teams can get assembled and organised. You know, Visma, they're trying to win stages here, and they lose one of the big engines to control these final 10Ks, Dylan Van Baarle. So that's going to be interesting to see how they manage that. But I'm sure they'll go for Van Aert again tomorrow. That's what he said in the interview afterwards. And I'm going to go again, Benji, with Caden Groves. I think he didn't have his lead out here. He still found the right wheel. He's packing 10 kilos on every other sprinter here, except for Van Aert. So he can just get Van Aert's wheel whenever he wants. Like, no one's going to bully Caden Groves off Van Aert's wheel. And I think if they launch at 200 and he gets the draft, I think Groves is maybe quicker. So I'm going to go with Groves again.
I'm going to go with Wout van Aert to be controversial. No, what's the word? Counter? To be...
Contrarian.
That's what I am.
Corbin
Like
Strong finished
librarian,
fast, though, so don't be surprised if he finishes well.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like, yes, but
Groves is
on
quicker.
those kind of stages, Groves should be quicker.
Yeah. Groves is quicker. And Van Aert, indeed. So, yeah, it'll be another sprint tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed the recap of the Vuelta. And indeed, tomorrow's Monday, so it does take pride of place being the only major race on. Tour de l'Avenir started today as well, in case you're interested in the U23.
Mate,
yeah?
Tomorrow, I am moving in the morning because I need to be back to watch the Vuelta in the afternoon. So I'm going to move my not the house, but the internals of this entire house within 12 hours. That's why the background is blank for the people that were wondering.
Oh, okay.
So
that makes sense.
in the span of that time, I'm going to try and figure that out. And hopefully I'm back by the time the podcast starts.
We'll see. Benji's on the clock. But yeah, there's lots of good racing today. Dostiev won Turel Romani. I'll start with that. The big GC rider. Another GC rider on his level, Jonas Vingegaard, won the Tour de Polonia GC out of Ulisi and Kelderman third. And Koy won the last stage there. De Lee won his first GC at the Tour of Denmark by 1 second ahead of Magnus Kort. Anders Foldager on Jayco third. He's actually quite good. He's had a very good season. Already winning a pro race in Slovakia in his first year at Jayco, the Dane. And the TT at Lewis Bauer also won multiple stages. The sprinter, the Kiwi, is he the next Lawrence Pithy ? On FDJ Conti. But at L'Avenir, there was actually another shock upset. Excuse me. Jakob Söderqvist, who is the big Swedish TT beast at Little Trek, he's won a lot of big TTs this year. He won the Giro, Baby Giro TT, with one hand behind his back. He gets beaten by Joseph Blackmore by maybe 200th of a second. Okay, Blackmore, literally like an above average World Tour rider. No shame in that, I guess, in a VO2 effort. Michael Leonard is the only guy to go out under 8 minutes, and he almost goes 1k an hour quicker than Blackmore in second. Michael Leonard on Ineos, who, we criticized the signing, maybe there was no results to support it. There must be some data somewhere, Benji. There must be.
Yeah, for sure, but it's also, I don't think we criticized the signing of Michael Leonard. We criticized it for him to be signed to a World Tour team instead of a U23 team.
Yeah. Dev team, sorry.
He should be in an Ineos U23 team right now, which
he's literally riding to L'Avenir.
He rode Burgos last week and he got 13 in the time trial, so he's not a shit time trialist, but I didn't expect him to win this L'Avenir TT, so that's good. That's good to see, and hopefully, because he's 60 kg guy roughly, right? That's right, he's like a GC prospect.
Söderqvist is 20 kilos heavier than him, and Blackmore's maybe 70 or whatever as a puncher, and Leonard's supposed to be a skinny GC guy, and wow, that's a huge result. That's what Ineos will be hoping for. Because in his U23, he was good, I guess, in the national champs at Canada, but he still didn't beat a guy at university on a club team in Canada, in the U23 TT in Canada, and to win the biggest TT in U23 cycling after the World Championships or European Championships. Let's see what he can do on GC, because he's obviously in fantastic shape. So Ineos will be happy with that, and indeed he's got to be happy with that as well. So it's good to see him performing. Other riders, Brennan did well, but he's Jana Widar, 9th, the best of, let's say, the GC riders, but it's much of a much, and it's not big gaps. AJ August only 4 seconds behind him, so all to play for there in L'Avenir. So we'll keep you updated with that. But it's been a long podcast. Thanks for bearing with us. My voice is going. We'll see you with a recap of the Vuelta tomorrow. Ciao.